Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and with Boris Johnson's attempts to get close to the Trump government, as they've been doing over the past few years, and his desire to get at least part of an agreement with the United States signed before next January's inauguration, I've worked on the assumption that Boris Johnson will absolutely be hoping that Donald Trump wins a second term in office. However, it seems that this may not be the case at all. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, the media, largely inspired by the Sunday Times, I think, has been reporting the idea that a minister has spoken off the record to correspondents that things would be a hell of a lot easier if Trump didn't win re-election, and that Boris Johnson was attempting to distance himself from the Orange One. Now, I've seen this in the New European and Business Insider, but like I say, I think it's come from the Sunday Times, although I didn't actually see it directly in there. Now, it seems to be partly based on the fact that Trump's rival, Joe Biden, has indicated his support for refiring up the United States' involvement in the new Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty that was dropped by Trump. It was very much favoured by Barack Obama. Donald Trump went, anything Obama likes is bad. So when he became president, the whole idea disappeared. Now, that might mean that we could forget about a US-UK trade deal and join the Trans-Pacific deal, because that would give us access to an awful lot of the economies that we're chasing at the moment, as well as the United States, if the United States decided to join it. Yes, I know we're not actually in the Pacific. I'm not entirely sure that that's considered a major sticking point. After all, Australia is not in Europe, but still somehow takes part in the Eurovision Song Contest. And the US trade deal had an awful lot of difficulties for Boris Johnson along the lines proposed by Trump, because we know what the talks have been held in secret because they're extremely damaging over here. The Americans aren't that bothered about them being held in secret, other than the fact that they now understand just how damaging this deal is in Britain and how poorly it's been received. But they were open and honest about what they wanted over a year ago when they published it. They published their proposals last February. The issue of food standards, an absolute red line for Trump, was getting very, very messy for Johnson's government. And I know, yes, his own MPs have been tamely going along by voting in Parliament to push lower food standards through. And that seemed odd to me, when quite a lot of Tory MPs live in farming constituencies that will be completely screwed over by this. But then I had a little bit of a thought, and this is pure speculation. I'm not even regarding it as very likely, but it is possible, I suppose. So a viewer messaged me with a response that they got from their Conservative MP about the trade bill that they'd been voting for. And I looked at the response, and the MP was denying the implications for what they'd just voted through. So at first I just thought, and I actually just responded, well, this is just them lying. They're just lying to you because it's not true what they're saying. Because they were trying to say something like it was just an enabling act to allow them to arrange trade deals. But this is not true, because we've already arranged trade agreements with a number of countries without this. And also we've got the view from expert legal advisors on what this bill that they've been voted through actually does. But then I was thinking, but once reality bites, once they see, it's all right them denying what this bill does at the moment. Once it takes effect, how are they going to deny it then, when it's pointed out that they voted for it, I thought. And then I just thought to myself, what if quite a lot of these MPs, not all by any means, but what if quite a substantial number of them, and bear in mind, well, not most of them, over 100 of them are woefully inexperienced. Quite a lot of them have only been MPs for a few months. What if they don't actually understand the legislation that they've been passing? They were just told by the chief whip, you're going to vote in favour of this and against this, and they just go, yes, right, fine. But they don't actually read it themselves. Why bother when someone's telling you which way to vote anyway? What if it isn't a case of them lying to their constituents? What if it's a case of the party leadership lying to them? And because they don't bother to read independent commentary on these things, they remain blissfully unaware. And if so, and again, that's just pure speculation, then I would think, so what happens when they see it for what it actually is, what they actually voted for? I mean, they're not likely to shrug their shoulders and let Johnson carry on, because this is dropping them in deep political hot water. So it'd be much simpler for the government if they didn't have to give quite so many concessions to the United States to get a deal that would devastate our industries. But Brexit has put us into a too weak position to actually defend our corner. We're getting nowhere because we have no strength at all. And this isn't speculation. We have a situation where we're going to have friction in our trade. We can't manage our trade borders in January. One way of easing this is to reduce tariffs on most imports. That means we don't have anything to negotiate within a trade deal. We also have a situation where the government are having to come up with the goods. They said with Brexit we'll be getting these trade deals. Where are they? People increasingly, especially next year, are going to be asking where they are. They wanted a quick trade deal. They haven't got it. America knows that we're in a really, really weak position. They've said as much. They're quite happy to say as much publicly to their own media. Brexit is leaving us without any trade deals and only a handful of trade agreements, none of which are the superior types that we were promised. We're not getting what Boris Johnson wants from the EU or Japan, and his only hope of a deal with the US was simply backing down to all of Trump's demands, which is what I presumed he would be doing. After all, he backed down over Huawei, not necessarily without good reason, but the good reasons were not what drove his decision. But if Trump wins and, if Trump loses, Biden wins, and then he throws his efforts behind a more international trading agreement in the form of the new Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is called the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, to give it its full title, that exists between nations including Australia, Singapore, Japan and Canada, all those countries that we also want to arrange trade deals with. And you can see the benefits if the United States joins, because it means the UK, if we could join too, can be negotiating membership alongside and deal with trade agreements with all of these nations in one fell swoop. Of course, it still means following rules that are decided elsewhere, and it would not include frictionless trade with the countries with whom we need it most. But that's okay, they'll somehow sell it as a victory. Now, some may point out that Joe Biden is not exactly a fan of Boris Johnson. No, indeed. He has been a vocal opponent of both Brexit and Boris Johnson personally. But if the government sees this Trans-Pacific trading bloc as a better bet than trying to get individual trade deals from all the same countries with a position of weakness, and I'd agree it is a better bet. I mean, people are still, I'm going to be one of them, they're still going to be pointing out that if we join this trading bloc, it is still much weaker and less wealthy than the EU, which is the most powerful and wealthiest trading bloc in the world. We'd be joining one that at the moment is in third place. It might be second place, I suppose, if the US joined it. I don't know about that. But it's certainly below the EU, and still would be. But it still would represent a better bet than trying to get an individual trade agreement with Japan and Australia and the United States and Canada all separately, particularly when it's very, very clear we're not going to get anything as good as we had as members of the EU with any of those nations. It might well be that Boris Johnson is absolutely happy to wash himself of the hitherto close association with Donald Trump, even though, of course, he's still following the Donald Trump playbook. And yet, because the government aren't sure who will win, they're not really distancing themselves from Trump very obviously. You know, they're not, for example, criticising his attacks on democratic norms and his own people. I mean, pointing arms and firing upon peaceful protesters in America. Not a word of condemnation from Boris Johnson. Not a word. Does he really think silence on the issue is bringing himself close to Biden? Because surely hedging your bets in this way is actually pissing off both sides. Trump's pissed off that he's not getting support from Johnson. Biden would be pissed off because he's not criticising this quite abhorrent behaviour from Trump. And I'll tell you what I would find interesting. Horrifying for America, but interesting. So let's say the election has occurred. It's November. It's come and gone. And it's a victory for Joe Biden. But it's the sort of victory that has been discussed a lot in America that means Trump will refuse to concede defeat because it hinges on a few little areas in largely Republican-controlled states. And Trump tries to start a civil war over the issue and it gets very, very messy. In other words, there will not be a smooth transition of power and it will not be a quick one either. Obviously, inauguration is when inauguration is, but usually there'll at least be a concession fairly quickly. And let's say there isn't. Boris Johnson, I mean, normally what you would do is you'd congratulate the winner. Now, if this were a country with whom Boris Johnson didn't have any particular ties with the government, he would just note that democratically Joe Biden had been elected and he would congratulate Joe Biden and call upon Donald Trump to step aside. But he's not, is he? He's just going to carry on staying very, very quiet on the issue for quite some time, refusing to endorse either of them. Again, how does that move him close to whoever eventually wins? And if Biden is confirmed as president, the UK will absolutely have to go full out for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Again, if it refuses to actually move close to the EU. Because there'll be no point in even trying to carry on with the US trade deal. Biden has already made it clear we're at back of the queue for talks with him as president. In addition, he's very close to the Irish lobby and will favour Ireland in any talks, which shouldn't really be a problem. Shouldn't be a problem if we were showing due consideration to Ireland as we promised to do. But we're not. Boris Johnson's actions have been characterised by screwing over Ireland several times. This will not endear him to Biden either. So then you'd have the situation where we're in January 2021. We've had a few weeks already of no-deal Brexit. Frankly, it'll be getting a little annoying. President Biden formally drops UK trade deal talks. We're all glaring at Johnson now. We were promised all of the trade deals would be signed the day we left the EU. That's what we were promised. All of them. It will have been a year since we left at this point and we don't have a single one signed. Not one. Not even one agreed to be signed imminently. The US trade talks will be dropped. Does Boris Johnson seriously think that he can just turn round to us all and say, it's all fine, no problem, we're going to negotiate entry into the new Trans-Pacific Partnership. It'll just take a few years, bear with me. At a time when trade barriers with Europe are hitting our stocks of food and medicines, does he really think that's going to wash? So although I can go along with the logic being reported here, and I'm not doubting it, about the long-term benefits to Britain of Biden winning the presidency, and I certainly hope for this outcome for a number of reasons, it seems to me there's an awful lot of buts when it comes to considering what President Biden would mean for Boris Johnson's short-term political ambitions. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.